lives. And of course, made everyone feel Brazilian for a while. From the moment I met Bill, I knew that there was something about him that I made him my personal guru, and always asked him questions that were on my mind and never got a standardized answer, but one that made me critical and thinking. I always felt like I had walked and talked to a Socrates. Bill was a wonderful conversationalist, a precocious thinker with a flexibility and a sensitivity. He was a people's philosopher who could reel off facts and analyze them as a professor, as a student, and as a deep thinker. He had a natural exuberance for learning, from jazz to physics, intertwined with his natural flamboyance. Maya Angelou wrote a poem for Bill Clinton. Excuse me? And it's almost as if she wrote it for Bill. This was in 1993 at Bill Clinton's first inaugural. I'd like to share an excerpt with you. So. But today, the rock cries out to us, clearly, forcefully. Come, you may stand upon my back and face your distant destiny. But seek no haven in my shadow. I will give you no hiding place down here. You, created only a little lower than the angels, have crouched too long in the bruising darkness, have lain too long face down in ignorance. Your mouths spilling words armed for slaughter. The rock cries out to us today. You may stand on me, but do not hide your face. Across the wall of the world, a river sings a beautiful song. It says, come rest here by my side, each of you a bordered country, delicate and strangely proud, yet thrusting perpetually under siege. Your armed struggles for profit have left collars of waste upon my shore, currents of debris upon my breast. Yet today, I call you to my riverside. If you will study war no more, come, clad in peace, and I will sing the songs that the Creator gave me when I and the tree and the rock were one. That was your father to me, David. Thank you.
From?
Bill was a very close family friend whom we have known and loved for almost 4 years. I thought of what words would best describe him, and found it to be a challenge. For Bill was a very complex man with many dimensions. Nevertheless, allow me to propose these essential terms that describe this great guy: decency, creativity, and the love of life. Let me elaborate a little bit. Decency. As you know, Bill worked on philosophy of morals and ethics, which he did with the full authority and expertise of a highly moral, decent, and ethical man. Bill was fiercely loyal to his family and was selflessly and completely dedicated to help his loved ones overcome adversities and difficulties which the fate heaped in abundance upon the Neblett family. It was not just doing everyday chores and running many errands while earning a living. Bill really provided comfort by sympathetic listening, empathetic understanding, and soothing words. Bill was intolerant of injustice, prejudice, and racism, and was, as you know, highly allergic to corrupt politics. He was an early participant in the civil rights struggle and an outspoken critic of certain aspects of our public policies, on which he spoke with eloquence, passion, and conviction. Creativity. Bill left behind many essays, papers, and books, including Sherlock's Logic, The Role of Feelings and Morals, and Hellwords. He knew and loved symbolic logic and told me of his admiration and respect for the Polish school of logicians that produced Alfred Tarski, among others. We had many discussions, some going well into the night, about relativistic morality, obligations, religion, law, physics, metaphysics, and many other topics. Being an engineer, I sometimes had difficulty to make the leaps of imagination that seemed to be so naturally coming to him. So we argued pretty hard. After a while, I would get tired, but Bill often wanted to go on, as he felt that there is so much more to be said. He was relentless in his pursuit of a good thought. In recent years, he got more into physics of cosmology, where both the math and the concepts are pretty hard. It didn't discourage him. He organized and kept alive an interesting email exchange group talked about time, space, dark energy, and many other topics with real physicists and with lesser beings like me. Once him and I got into discussion about immortality. I offered the vision whereby one day we would become immortal by downloading our brain content into a computer and then live forever in the virtual world. Bill had a big ethical problem with this vision. He felt that such download would never be complete, for it will miss the essence of who we, the humans, really are. Maybe he really believed in the soul. I will never know. Love of life. Bill loved life unconditionally, with all its beauty, complexity, and challenges. He always was full of energy. I am 15 years younger than him, but he sometimes made me feel old. He would never miss an opportunity to go out to the jazz club, an outing with friends, or organize a house party celebrating Thanksgiving, Christmas, or Easter with family and friends. Lucky for us, he and Elsa enjoyed cooking, and we have many lasting and mouth-watering memories of their barbecued meats, feijoadas, and other culinary masterpieces. He loved humor, and we had many a good laugh, often from recycling the same old and tired jokes. He played a mean game of poker and did not like it at all when I kidded him about the seriousness he invested in it. He loved nature. On one of his visits here, we took him to see the desert flowers. The beauty of the place and just made him speechless, but only for a brief moment. Then he was on a cell phone calling a bunch of people to tell them how extraordinary was the place he was visiting. He just couldn't have it all to himself. He had to share. Of course, fishing was his favorite pastime, whether doing it from his little boat in the LA harbor, local lakes, or from a bigger boat in Florida. He was fond of reminiscing about his adventures on board the shrimping boat. I think that love of fishing is a genetic condition of all true Kargs and their descendants. Let me finish with a quote from Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea. Then he began to pity the great fish he had hooked. He's wonderful and strange, and who knows how old he is, he thought. Never had I such a strong fish, or one that acted so strangely. Perhaps he's too wise to jump. He could ruin me by jumping, or by a wild rush, but perhaps he has been hooked many times before, and he knows that this is how he should make his fight. He cannot know that it is only one man against him, nor that it is an old man. But what a great fish he is, and what he will bring in the market if the flesh is good. He took the bait like a male, and he pulls in like a male, and his fight has no panic in it. I wonder if he has plans, or he's just as desperate as I am. Bill, our dearest friends, we miss you, we love you, and we always will. Thank you.
And I'd like to start by thanking my companion Nina Freshly for saying that I should organize this and that I was the right person to do this, being still at the college. Also thanks to David and Herb Siegel for sending the photos, and also thanks to the Dean of the college for providing the funds for our lunch and the flowers and the space too. And so I met Bill Neblett in his years when he was entering retirement at Oxy. We became fast friends through our mutual love for jazz music. We shared the experience of attending the London School of Economics, he in the 60s and I in the 80s. We shared many intellectual and political conversations on the nature of existence, beauty, ethics, and morality, and Obama's battle with Tea Party politics. Bill became a great confidant, a companion, and somewhat a father figure as he was 27 years older than me. And he gave reflective dialogue to me on my career, my finances, my family relationships. I had no such figure in my life since my father passed away in 1987, also of brain cancer. Bill had so much joie de vivre, and he was in such good health that Nina and I thought he was immortal, he would live forever. He was stricken so suddenly, and I miss Bill immensely. For several years, Bill would drive up from Fountain Valley in Orange County to my home in Pasadena, where we would listen to recorded jazz music before heading out to live jazz clubs throughout the metropolis of Los Angeles. Sometimes we would gather with former students, and the presence of multiple generations of Oxy people was just positively effervescent. Bill was full of life, experiencing the creative environment of bohemian jazz clubs. He was such a rapt listener, and always thought it was important to give musicians the appropriate recognition and applause. It made the musicians more lively. We like to explore new clubs in the various artistic scenes of Los Angeles, and we dialogue on the changing history of jazz music in America. Why were people losing faith in jazz? How can we get people more interested in jazz? He knew the scene of the 50s and 60s, while I knew the 70s and the 80s. I enjoyed Bill's stories of Los Angeles bohemia on the Sunset Strip in the 60s and the 70s, when he was an improvisational provocateur with the Instant Theater. I so much enjoyed his colorful stories of growing up in Key West, Florida, and we had the pleasure of driving together through the streets by his old high school and family homes together on my visit to Florida in 2009. He recalled visits to Cuba in the period before Castro's revolution, where his father was a missionary, his grandfather. Bill's dad served as a state senator, a distinguished state senator, and Bill had statesman-like qualities. but he often humbly called himself, as others mentioned, a Key West conch that enjoyed traditions of fishing and life by the water in the days before South Florida became a hot real estate market for retirement communities and those bayfront condominium towers that line Biscayne Bay. I also enjoyed his stories of underwater diamond mining in Brazil with his wife Delza's father, who was also an adventurous entrepreneur and for some time owned a rabbit farm. Bill was somewhat the most interesting man who ever lived to me. And one of my favorite stories was the one about the Lupe del Mar, the distinguished sea captain from the Canary Islands, who was apparently one of his more distinguished ancestors. And I think it's that little hint of the Canary Islander that's attests to his multicultural ancestry. I mean, Bill came from, a family that was distinctive and high status. His father was a state senator, and he told me that he was always in, the fraternities, well liked, but they called him Sambo. Just a little bit. He was a little different, and in that way, we shared this idea that we had a similar racial ethnic ancestry. He was whiter than I am. I'm not white, but somehow he said that. I'm not completely white either, Jan, you see, and I've always thought that that's being somewhat of the outsider. He was an insider who really attached himself with the lives of the outsiders, and maybe that's one reason that he was drawn to Bohemia. I recall that Bill highly anticipated his move from Fountain Valley, which was too sterile and boring or something, to the Miami suburb of Cutler Bay, Florida in 2008. That would allow he and Delza to spend more time with their son David. Vianne moved out there, and so did Ruby. David was a successful maritime attorney with many friends in the business of yachts and an avid fisherman. Bill spent several very happy years in retirement in Miami, going out on regular fishing expeditions in the Bahamas, Bimini, and Key West, during which it's quite evident from the photos that Bill caught some of the biggest whoppers in his life. He and Delza were able to enjoy several cruises. They were also able to participate in the destination wedding of their son David and wife Tony in Riviera Maya, Yucatan. That's in November 2013, just months before Bill's death, and you can really see the great delight in Herb Siegel's photos that he was part of that. Bill said he always had great faith in the ability of his son David to take on the fiduciary and legal responsibilities of guaranteeing home and health for his wife Delza, grandmother Ruby, and sister Vianne, and also to his wife Tony after Bill's death. I wish David best of luck with the challenges ahead, and that I am always available to lend helpful words of moral support. While David is guardian of the family, I wish to share in the guardianship of Bill's legacy and also to be his scribe. And if there's any of you that I don't have the email of already, I'll have a little folder up here for you to leave me your email. We're recording this for Delza, who can't be here. Finally, Bill sometimes spoke about driving around Miami, inspired by the beauty of these tropic thunderclouds that would come in waves along the skyline. They kind of rise to the heavens, and they'd be colored rosy by the setting and rising sun. And so I can really still see Bill now driving through the heavens in search of the latest jazz watering hole, enjoying the rapturous melodies, and listening for the subtle time changes in the music of the spheres. And last we have his son, David Neblett.
Well, initially I wanted to thank everybody for being here. Thank the college, and Jan especially for putting this all together. He asked about my speaking, and I didn't prepare anything because I told him, quite frankly, I didn't know if I could get up here and speak to everybody. I'm well versed in the role of feelings and morals, and I've had plenty of philosophical conversations, and I generally consider myself a stoic. But talking about my father is something very, very difficult. And it's so wonderful to see the outpouring of love and history from my father. And I know that if this wasn't put together, then it's just something that wouldn't happen. So I'm sorry if I'm a little bit caught up, but it's obviously very emotional. I do want to relate some stories and give a little bit of I guess my thoughts about my father, some of it relating to the college and some of it relating to a lot of the people who are sitting out here. It's wonderful, I think, to have this at Oxy because Occidental and his experience here was such a huge part of his life. He was a true academic. He was that way till the end, and I think that he really thought that his work with not just the college, but more specifically with what he would consider young minds, was probably one of his greatest accomplishments. And some people have related this, but he didn't want to tell people what to do, and he wasn't just a teacher. He was someone who tried to open doors, and someone who tried to bring the best out of people and let them find their own way. And I don't think there are that many people who can do that. And there are people who can teach and people who can guide, but he was someone who allowed people to be who they really were. And I think sort of give them the guidance, someone said, to show them the way, but let them to be who they should become, not who someone else wanted them to become. And so I think that was one of his greatest gifts as a person. The other thing that you all somewhat know but don't have full experience was he was an incredible family man. And I think that a lot of his gift with teaching and with nurturing young souls really led to him being just an incredible father. It was quite fortunate for me and for my family to have such a wonderful patriarch and leader, and someone again who could, be stern but be nurturing and really allow me and my family to be who they really wanted to be. And so I think that's incredibly important. As many of you know, my parents were actually married here on campus. They really felt as part of this place. And one thing that some of you do know and some of you don't, but the school really carried through with him, and it wasn't just Occidental, it was the faculty, and I think actually more than the faculty, but the students. And my dad kept in touch with so many students, and it was such a joy to him to have those people keep in contact with him, and I think he was so proud that he could do that and be someone who was not just a professor and somewhat of a mentor, but also a friend and someone again who was a little bit more than you normally see in a professor or a teacher. And in that vein, as a lot of I think the students and faculty know, he did more than a lot of teachers would do with students. Crazy parties, jazz clubs, things that probably we shouldn't talk about. But he really felt that was not just a duty of his as a teacher, but he did it because he wanted to do it and because he liked different people. And he wanted to encourage people to do different things and be who they were. And it's something that he took so much pride and joy in. And so he really wanted to do that, and I'm so happy that he had the opportunity. And when I've met some of you and read a lot of emails and talked to a lot of former students, it's something that I think he would take some of the most pride in, was his keeping in touch and keeping that relationship with students and younger minds. My father was many things to many people, but I think that was part of the great part about him was that he was so multifaceted and was able to reach out and communicate with so many different types of people on so many levels. One of the things that I've been reflecting on most recently was his joy of life, his wonderment of aesthetics and beauty. Obviously the long philosophical conversations, some of them never ending, that we would have, but that he really relished in life and in the now. And it made such a difference because I think everyone who was with him was touched by how much he enjoyed himself and his energy and thirst to get out there and do things and be part of everything. Obviously he's not here with us, but not that long ago he thought of himself as a student. And not just a student of life, but a real student, a college student. And I think that he finally realized he wasn't a college student when he retired. And I think it was only then that he realized, hey, maybe I'm not in my 20s anymore. But then I think he graduated to his 30s. Because he was always so young at heart. And very recently, about 3 months ago, one of his favorite jazz clubs in Miami closed down. And as everyone knows, he was in the scene, he knew all the musicians, he knew the owner, he knew the bartenders, he knew everybody. And he was trying to help them open up somewhere else even. But the night that we went out to the final performance for this jazz club, the Van Dyke, I went with a number of my friends and my wife, and it was about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. We'd been there since 8 or 9, and he said, "But okay, you know, we're going now. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning." He says, "Well, that's great, guys. That's good, but I'm going to another place. I'm checking out another club, and then after that, I might go somewhere else. But you have fun. You kids go home." So whatever he did and whatever kind of energy he had it. And it was, I think, that love of life and that realization that he should live life and enjoy everything that he could do and enjoy everything that was available to us all. And so I guess on a final note, I just want everyone to remember that he led an exceptional life. He was an exceptional man. And right up until the very end, he was giving it his all. He definitely didn't leave anything on the table. So thank you again for all coming and for putting this on.
Yeah, we'll have a sandwich, lunch, and I got some wine and whiskey. No white wine, unfortunately, all red. And I don't know how to keep the white wine cold. And just one last thing, you know, he does that novel Heloise, so send me an email if you want to know where to get it. And there is the second novel with the title Tia, the Topless Dancer. But believe me, Bill always told me he's a strict Methodist. So he was. So even though he loved the beauty, if you're looking for anything sexy, it's nothing in there. It's just a lot of philosophizing about beauty. And I believe there was even a third novel that was not published.
Correct. And he would want everyone to remember, too, that he's published in the same book of poetry as Obama, which I'm sure he told everybody that.
And in fact, he has those 2 poems, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
But we'll make sure that the college has a copy of that. But I'm sure he would want me to remind everybody that Obama and he are published together in the same book. So I will do that again.
Yeah, so with all that, thanks for coming, everybody, and we can have a little bits of conversation, you know, as we want to.